Someday we will film us backstage before we go on.
I want a blooper reel, like, you know, they're like.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Late Night Book Chat. I'm Patricia Meredith. This is my husband, Andrew Meredith, and we are joined by another Andrews tonight, by the wonderful, the marvelous Katie Andrews, K.E. Andrews, fantasy author, poetess extraordinaire. So we're so excited to have you join us tonight. Thank you for coming on, and I know it's late out there, so thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So everybody, hi in the chat. Come join our live studio audience. And if you have any questions for Katie, we do like to save those till the end. So be sure to just mark those with an asterisk, and then we'll have you ask your questions at the end after we've gotten through most of ours, because we have a bunch of questions for her first. So, but first, to start the night.
First question.
Yes.
Do you prefer to go by Katie, or shall we call you K.E.
Yes.
all night?
I just go by whatever people call me. So, I don't have a preference.
Katie, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us about everything about you?
Oh, gosh. So I'm Katie. I live in Powder Springs, Georgia. I am, like Patricia said, a fantasy and poetry author. By day, I work at a equine vet in their office portion as an admin. So I've been doing that for about 4 years. Let's see. I work for a nonprofit organization called The Love Story, which focuses on therapeutic journaling. I garden and keep plants, as you can see. I have 3 cats. I don't like the heat. Yeah.
What are you doing in Georgia then?
The Lord has a funny sense of humor, and I think each year it'll get better, and it doesn't.
Oh no.
Are you from Georgia originally?
No. So I moved here in 2001 from California.
Okay.
Also a hot spot. I guess depending on what part of California.
Yeah.
So we were San Jose area, so it was kind of mid. San Francisco. I mean, it was close enough to San Francisco, and then I have family up in north, so definitely get cold and snow. So I mean, we get nice winters here sometimes, but definitely for about April to about maybe November, it's warm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, all right. Well, we like to kick things off with some random questions. So we have our pot of random bookish questions. They'll all be kind of book oriented, but other than that, that's all I can promise. So we'll start with those and see what pops up. Okay, good one. If you could be any mythical creature for a day, which would you be?
Oh gosh, that's a hard one. I don't know. Default always seems to be dragon. That just seems like it'd be fun. I don't know. Maybe griffin. We'll just go with that. It's the best of both worlds. I hate heights. So maybe as the mythical creature that can fly, I won't really have a fear of falling. Right. So griffin seems like it'd be fun.
Awesome.
Nice.
Awesome. Good answer.
All right. Would you rather read 1 book per year and remember everything, or read 100 books a year and remember nothing?
Well, okay, I'm already kind of the second anyway. Like, sometimes people are like, what did you read? I'm like, I guess it was a book. I liked the characters. Don't ask me who they are. But I guess I'll go with the first one, just because it would be nice to remember every single thing about a book, even if it was the only book I read.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Are there any books that stick out in your memory that you do? You're like, oh no, that's one I do remember.
Definitely Lord of the Rings. Those were good ones. I do remember As I Lay Dying by Faulkner. I didn't read it till college, but definitely that was, quite memorable. Can't forget that book. Bartleby the Scrivener was fun. It's just a story. So I loved the audacity of those characters. It was great.
That was a defining story for me too.
It was funny. I loved it. I was like, I don't know why everyone else is complaining. This is his best work to me. White Whale, what? I don't care.
Yeah.
So it was Herman. No, wait, it wasn't Herman Melville. It was the other guy.
Melville Herman.
Yes.
No,
Yes. He just puts on a thicker mustache.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a lot of books, so I need probably a half an hour to figure out like what do I remember.
Exactly. So are you a rereader of Lord of the Rings?
Yes, slowly doing that. I was gonna start the Two Towers over my vacation, but I did not. So the bookmark's in it. It's just not officially been started.
Yeah.
Herman Melville.
It was. Okay, I remember something from college.
Yeah. Okay, cool. My turn? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, do you ever read multiple books at once? Or are you
Well, my Goodreads says there's 7 currently being started. One is a short story, so I guess that counts. Yes, I read multiple. I did that today. I was like, we're going to get through some short stories, then we're going to jump between Darkblade Assassin, and then we were going to go to something else. And yeah, so here we are.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Are you listening to, or like, are some of them audiobooks and some of them physical books, or all?
Well, they're digital. One's a physical book, so I bring like one book into work. So that's Waking Ursa Minor is my workbook at the moment, and then the rest. Oh, actually, I lied. Okay, so there's 3 physical books. One is a John Mark Comer book, and then a Lisa Harper devotional, and then Waking Ursa Minor, and then the rest are on my Kindle because my Kindle says I have 694 unread books. So that was a little shaming me today. So I'm like, well, I guess we'll start getting through those.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. What about writing? Do you write multiple books at once?
Yes and no. I found that I really have to kind of oscillate between the two. So finished up draft for a novella. So I focused on that for a bit because I was really starting to get in the groove in that. And I was like, okay, if we don't do it now, we're never going to finish it. So I did that. Took a break from my sequel, now jumping back to the sequel because the draft is done, and I will wait for it to be torn apart before I go back to it. Yes. Whether or not I'm finished with my sequel before then is what the question is. So I'm a mood writer, so I'm like, we're either going to work on one project or both, just it depends on how we break up our time.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. One more random.
All right. Where do you typically get your books from?
Say that one more time.
Where do you typically get your books from?
Oh, the jerky answer is the store. I usually, let's see. Well, my Kindle says Kindle.
I was just gonna say.
So a lot from Amazon, but I do love to shop secondhand books. So Second and Charles I usually go to, or any of the local secondhand bookstores near me I'll go to.
Yeah. Are there any favorites that you would recommend in your area?
I definitely love Shop the Bookworm, which is in downtown Powder Springs. They're really cool. They do a lot of cool stuff. The Marietta Book Exchange is really cool. It's got just a nice little setup. There's a new one that I want to try out that's only about like 15 minutes from me that I didn't know existed. So I'm very excited about that.
That's a good one.
Although the one that I really like is the Crazy Book Lady. She's further up in Ackworth, which is about 25 minutes, but she's got 2 cats that wander around the store. So that's a special place in my heart kind of bookstore.
Awesome. Perfect. And is that the same one who's got a YouTube channel, or is that a different person?
I don't know. I think she's different, but she hosts like a lot of stuff, and that's where I did my first like in-person poetry thing was at that one.
Nice.
Yeah. She was the one who was like, well, you don't have to do a book signing here for me to stock your books, whereas some of them are like, we want you to do a book signing first. I'm like, well, problem is I don't have enough books. So I only have these 3.
Right. Yeah. So when you were first starting, right now we're done with the random ones. Now we can go into, okay, more specific. Okay. So when you were first starting, you started with publishing poetry, right? Before you dove into fantasy.
Yes.
So you have 3 books. So which one came first? The Hurt Girl Speaks?
Yes, Hurt Girl Speaks came first. So I was still writing my fantasy in between, but then I was like, with the love story, I was, hold on, let me hold that up. Our whole kind of premise with the program we were structuring is we gave people the option to publish their journal entries if they so choose to, just because, it's a nice little incentive. Like, you've worked hard on these things. So if you want to take that step, you can kind of self-published. So going through our first pilot program, did the journal entries, did all the stuff that needed, and I was like, okay, we're going to publish that. So we'll just see where it goes. Because I was originally not ever going to write poetry. But then college is like, poetry is pretty cool. And I'm like, I agree with that. So yeah, I think this was 2020, I think was when I published this. Great time for publishing. Yes, 2020.
Yep. Class of 2020, indie, indie publishing. Awesome.
Great time to be stuck at home doing whatever it is we're doing.
Exactly. So did you publish the second one within a year? It's pretty close, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm bad on my so actually I published it 2 years after. So it was Let the Hurt Girl Speak, and then I dove into my first fantasy book in 2021, and then I went into this one. And then my third one, I'm so glad I put the copyright teats in it, was also 2022. So I released 2 poetry books in 2022.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay. So what made you switch from poetry to fantasy? Or was it not really a switch? You were kind of, like you said, you were doing both kind of at the same time. But
yeah, so the poetry books were more kind of like my experiment to see, like, can I get a book out? Can I, like design a cover myself? Can I format it? Just in a small kind of, not to say like no one reads poetry, but it's a harder market to kind of sell to. So I was like, okay, at least if no one reads it, this is a fun experiment.
Yeah.
Whereas then I could put the most of my backing behind my fantasy book when I'm a little bit more confident. Still had issues, but so it was more of like, I need to finish my fantasy book. It's been 10 years. We need to kind of get it out. This is our foot in the door of saying, look, I'm a published author. Here's another book.
Yeah.
Right.
That's totally different.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you read a lot of fantasy? Is that why you went that way? Okay.
It's 90. Yeah. So my very first fantasy was, I think, the Chronicles of Narnia and the Warrior Cats books. Okay. So I started very early, and then Lord of the Rings eventually came. I read Harry Potter as a child, although I kind of had to smuggle it into my household because I was not allowed to read it. So that one didn't stick as much with me. Sorry, all Potterheads out there. I enjoyed it. I was like, this is fun. But I'm like, oh, Lord of the Rings is cool. And then just started reading whatever else was out there. Guardians of Ga'Hoole was another one. I did read Aragorn as a child, or Aragon. Sorry. I don't know anymore. All these names. The Dragon has a sword. So I started reading those as a child as well. So it just kind of progressed and never got out of it.
Yeah. I can definitely see more of an influence of Lord of the Rings in your writing. You're very literary and poetic, and that kind of the world building is very mythological, and versus Harry Potter is much more hand wavium. You have a set magic system, you have rules and all of that. So yeah. All right, go ahead.
So your first fantasy book was Assassin of Grins and Secrets.
Yes.
And you said you're working on it for 10 years.
Yes.
From 2010 or 2012 through 2022.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was sophomore in high school. I had another fantasy series that I started in middle school. I had like 8-ish books kind of written in or plotted. It was a lot. And they were like 300 pages each. And I thought, this is going to be great. And then I got to high school. I was like, nope, nothing about this is good. So scrapped all that.
But you wrote 300 pages in 8 books.
So each book was like 300 pages.
And you wrote that much?
Mm-hmm.
As a middle schooler?
Mm-hmm. Wow. So from like 6th-ish grade all the way up until about sophomore year.
Oh my goodness.
I was really into fan fiction in middle school, so that was kind of my start into writing.
That's how you start. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
very impressive. Yeah.
The Assassin of Grins and Secrets started after I read a book that I thought, I like the concept, I don't like the writing.
Yeah.
So, or really much of the story. So I was like, let's see what we can do with that. And then it just kind of evolved. And then really worked on that through college and high school. I had the sequel kind of written, I think it was either end of high school, beginning of college. So like 2013, 2014, I had like a sequel kind of drafted. I worked on that. So the sequel will also be going on about 10 years soon, if it doesn't come out this year. So I was just like, it just took that long to kind of do it because I had queried and nothing really came out of it. And I was like, okay, they talked about self-publishing in college. That sounded scary. So let's try it again. So like really 2020, 2021 is when I really hit the ground running, focused really hard on that, and then got it out at the end of the year pretty much in 2021.
Yeah. And then got finalist in SBFBO.
Oh, with
wasn't
this
that
one,
this year? No, Assassins. Isn't that also?
I was semi-finalist.
Semi-finalist,
yes.
Yeah, with SBFBO.
Yeah.
Which actually came across my Facebook memories the other day. When Book Nest had posted that, because I think it was Andrew who was like, you need to check this out, and I couldn't because my link at work was not working. It just, for some reason, the internet did not want me to see it, so I'm like, cool, I'm gonna think about this for the next couple hours.
Wow, that's amazing. So tell us, if we haven't read Assassins, what is that one about? And
So that is a dark fantasy focused on Serene, who is a assassin. She's in prison, just kind of awaiting death until a prince, Ramesses, comes and offers her a job, just to kind of be his guard, but also kind of just spy on his father because some things are going on. And the fun part is she wants to kill his dad. He does not know this. So there's a lot of just kind of political intrigue, the tension of wills and what she wants versus what he wants kind of thing, because her main goal is freedom. But in order to also gain freedom, she is choosing vengeance. So that's book one.
Great.
Awesome. And it's very, even though it sounds very action heavy, it's still that poetic style that you have. It's very, at least people have said that. And then also you did the layout for that one too.
Yes. Yeah. Right. So I did most of the interior design, some of it in Canva, some of it I hand drew. The daggers I drew myself. And I just was like, I really want to create a pretty book on a budget. Because I don't know if it'll ever get us like a nice special edition. So I'm like, well, just make the paperback really nice as much as possible. Which is where I ran into some issues because I used a lot of black on the inside and the printing presses did not like that, but they did not want to tell me that until like the 2 days before publishing. So I was like, that's fun.
Ouch.
Yeah.
So
now that's going to be a trilogy, right?
It's going to be a trilogy, yes.
And did you write the third book 30 years ago?
Yeah, right before I came into this world. No, the third book I started a couple of years ago. It's currently just a Frankenstein monster compiled over several different NaNoWriMos. It's mostly done as a draft.
Okay.
That I will have the pleasure of going back through and fixing.
Still, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So the series is plotted. It's just not all physically written.
Will you ever publish those 8 books in the middle grade?
Absolutely not. I was like, what can we save from this? I'm like, maybe some characters, and I was like, I think I landed on like one character name that I might funnel into some novella. That was it. I was just like, it was a good exercise in how to write and what not to write.
Yeah. So through that, did you learn? Are you more plot driven or character driven?
I would say more character driven, but I think both. You need to have a balance with both. Otherwise, it's just like, well, these characters are fun, but I don't know what they're doing. So I think to kind of have the balance is important. But I think, I'd much rather read a book that's got really cool characters than a really cool plot.
Yeah.
All right. So you wrote book 1 and 2 10 years ago, and 3 at some point between the last 10 years. When did you
when did this one come around?
Yeah, so that one was, let me see. Oh gosh. Trying to remember. I want to say.
You're trying to remember that. This is the most beautiful book in the community.
Seriously.
I have not seen any other book that, I mean it's like a Silverstone. Or not, it's like a broken binding.
Hold on.
Book.
That's the dream.
So this is so this is the dust cover, right, guys?
Which is incredible.
And then this is what's
the naked,
inside.
Yeah.
The naked cover. Is that not
I love
incredible?
it so much.
It's so amazing. It's so beautiful. I don't know which one I want on my shelf.
Yeah.
So I'll switch it out every once in a while.
Yes, there was a lot that went into that one. The original idea for it, yes, I was like, I really want just to do that. And luckily Vellum does just so many cool things now. And make it so easy. Yeah, that was the fun part.
Oh my
And I
God.
wish I could say I drew those, but it was all Canva.
I love
Which
it.
was the real part, was trying to find images that all pretty much looked the same.
Yeah,
That was the real.
exactly. Well,
And then
and
a
then
color
the
map.
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah.
this map. And who did the map?
One of my friends from college, Sheridan Falconberry, he did the map in Assassins as well. So I'd
Okay,
reached out to him.
okay.
I'm like, you
Yeah.
do good with maps. My maps suck.
Man,
And that was Mariana. She actually had reached out to me through Instagram. She's like,
Okay.
"Oh, I read the book. Here's some like character sketches of your characters." I'm like, "Dang, okay, I love that." So she was already a fan of the book, which is like a dream come true. And so I was like, "Okay, so you do art, and maybe I'm looking for like some interior stuff." So she did the naked cover design and the character art, and then the book plate
Okay.
in there, and then Sarah Ferrari did the back image.
Like that.
Yeah. Some yeah.
In the back. Yeah.
Which was a totally different style, but I was like, you both are so amazing that I want both.
There you
And I was so happy. It was like it's like we gotta kind of express some dark parts of this.
That completely changes what you
Yeah,
see
I'm like,
from
there's a skull on the back, so it's fine. It maybe conveys some
It's like
of
a
that.
Studio Ghibli. It's like a Studio Ghibli cartoon.
Exactly.
Right,
Like Princess Mononoke. Like this is very pretty until the guy's arm gets ripped off at like 50 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And then you realize it's not a kid's movie, which is real fun. But as to when the book was started, I think it was March of 2022. I kind of come up with the idea. I was not supposed to be writing another book. I was supposed to finish my sequel because that's what I thought people did. But I was like, oh, that sounds fun. I kind of had toyed with an idea of like a Persephone and Hades gender bent kind of story. So I was like, oh, this seems fun. And then I'd seen something on Instagram. Someone had art for like a story idea. They're like, 2 necromancers on the run. I'm like, oh, necromancy sounds fun. And then it just kind of evolved from there. Yeah, but I was like, I wanted to do kind of my own spin on necromancy where it's not like rooted in like an evil kind of magic system. It's more of like we're hearing the stories of those who have gone on, but we're not recalling the soul. So it's more of like the body is remembering the memories, which was like a fun kind of thing I'd heard in like psychology circles. So I was like, what does this mean for, like those who have gone on, and this art has kind of been lost because this magic's been vilified because of the potential to, raise the dead, which still has its stigma. So I was like, how can this be used in maybe a positive connotation for this kind of magic user? So that was a really fun exploration. And then it came into being, and I was like, oh, Spiffo 9 is coming around. We'll see if we could get this done. And I think I got it done May 17th, which was like
yeah.
So that's when it came out, and I forgot when Spiffo opened. I was like, okay, I can do this. Here we go.
Awesome. Yep. And you got finalists for that.
I did.
And then you won something else, Indie Book Award.
Okay, so I'm in the Indieverse Awards. I guess I'm a finalist. I don't know. I placed in something. The Next Generation Indie Book Awards, I came in finalist for fantasy. And then in the Indie Ink Awards, it's finalist for I forgot. Because that competition's still going on, and I don't remember. I think it ends in December. I don't know. But it's there. It's there for something. Awesome. But I know for sure it was Spiffo finalist and Next Generation.
Wow. Is it up for anything for the layout? I mean, it should be winning awards for your layout.
I think one of the ones was for best cover design or interior art. I don't remember if that was the Indieverse one that just opened last year or if this was the Indie Ink Award. I don't honestly recall. I'm really bad because some of the competitions I'll just like enter and then forget, but Spiffo is the one that you can't really forget about because you're in it forever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so if people are looking to get a copy of this, it's also in paperback, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So
get the hardback.
But get the hardback.
Get the hardback.
I was like, this is my choice for the special edition. We'll just combine them.
Right. There you go. The paperback still has this kind of stuff.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So specifically with this, I wanted to ask you. So they're all real flowers?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. are they all what they stand for? Is that out of something like a Victorian, how they
Yeah.
have the meaning of flowers? And yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I really loved that just before
Yeah.
that book came out, and I was like, oh my gosh, plant magic. I'd really love that, even though it's not the main focus. But I was like, how can we just kind of draw this other element in? So I really focused in on plants that could be kind of found in Scotland-ish weather. So I really honed in on those. So looked at both, like, what's the Victorian meaning, what's like the Scottish meaning, if there's any other meaning, and just trying to figure out, like, how can I kind of group my chapters around those specific flowers.
Right. Yeah. So I love that because like each chapter starts with a kind of flower, and then it tells you what it stands for. So you kind of know, what baby is going to be coming, but not at all, But you got like marigold, and then is that the Latin name underneath it?
Yes. Yeah. So I really just wanted to be a nerd and do that.
I love it.
Because you're a green thumb.
Yeah, I try.
Yeah.
And do you what do you grow? Do you do veggie, flowers, both?
Yes.
You're showing off a lot of these, right? You have a lot of these flowers growing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that until after I made the book. I was like, oh my gosh, I should start getting some of these plants and planting them. So definitely have a lot of nasturtiums. My tomatoes are starting to bloom. There's just so many, unfortunately. I planted so many and I didn't have the heart to kill most of them. So I'm just like, we're going to just put you out and see who survives. And maybe get you a new pot if you get big enough. So a lot of beans, a lot of herbs. Just there's so much oregano. I did not plant the oregano. It has just come back year after year. There's a lot of lemon balm, which is unfortunately never planted outside of a pot, but even if you plant it in a pot, it will still find a way to escape that pot. So 20 years later, it's too much, but the bees love it, so I leave it alone. I've got some squash. I've got some cucumbers trying to come in. My corn is, I guess, going to grow. It doesn't seem big enough to where I think it should be, but this is Georgia. Anything can happen. I've got ginger. I've got peppers, some onions, really a lot of things.
Awesome. So when it opens with her walking through the garden, that's your garden.
Kind of, yeah. It's organized chaos. I know there are things growing. I just don't always remember what they are. I was better about labeling them this year, but still some things I'm like, I don't know what this is.
Awesome. Yeah. So you do so you've got the flowers. There's lots of birds, specifically chickens. From the opening, you meet what's her name? Morhenna. The chicken, the rebel chicken. I love her. Oh my gosh, I love that you had a sticker for her with the book.
It was a huge marketing point. I'm like, I don't know how else to market this book, but we're gonna put spiteful chicken on everything imaginable and see if someone reads it because of that.
I love it. So do you have chickens or have you?
No. I am not terrified of chickens, but I'd rather not be near a live one unless it's a baby, just because they can be mean. And my mom loves to tell me the story of when she was attacked by a rooster that did not have its claws removed. So I'm like, cool, that seems great. And then when I saw them cannibalizing each other when I was on a mission trip in Nicaragua, I was like, nature is violent. Chickens are scary. There's no reason to be afraid of it, but there's just some sort of primal thing that I'm like, you're going to stay over there or become Chick-fil-A nuggets and we'll be fine. You can live your life. You don't have to be made into food, but I'd rather not be near you.
Yeah. I love it. So that's where the cannibalism warning comes in, huh, for your book? I haven't gotten there yet.
Partially. It's that was more of a minor kind of warning because I wasn't sure what trigger warnings would be appropriate because I'm some people might react over a sentence or two. But really Morhenna was inspired by Karen the emu, which is if you've ever watched The Useless Farm. Yeah, so it was just that seems like a fun thing. Let's miniaturize it. And it's still not fun.
Oh my goodness, I love it. Okay, but you are a vet, so you do work with animals. Do you ever have
Yeah, so I never went to vet school actually, which again, it's wonderful how circumstance works. So I was working at Ace Hardware during the pandemic and hated it because it was just more of a temporary stopover after I got back from my Scotland internship in 2019. and had a hard time finding a job. So one of my friends who has horses, she's like, hey, my vet's looking for someone to work in the office. Do you want to do that? I know you want to do more office work because I'm an English major, and that's always a fun sell in the job market. So I was like, sure, okay, as long as he's fine that I have ridden a horse once in my life and had Breyer horses as a child, but other than that, I know nothing about the horses. And he was fine. So it's more been like 4 years of just kind of learning basics to where I sound like I kind of know something. So, you know, steadily. I can name certain parts of the horse and be like, that's, you know, a leg. What about that? But I do love animals. Yes, horses are also in that category of I can appreciate you from a distance, but also if you decide to, you could kill me. And I don't think I want to be near that.
Yeah.
Also, the vet bills. I'm like, I will never own a horse that, other people can own horses.
Right. Exactly. So are you a fan of Harriet, of James Harriet and the All Creatures? Have you read those?
Yes, I actually read that, I think, in middle school. It was like the omnibus edition. It had the dachshund on the front, and it was a Barnes & Noble. So I remember I picked that up. Do I still have that on my shelf? I think I do. So I read that. Never watched the TV show, but I really should. But yeah, no, I loved it. And it always made me cry, which is where I kind of have like a love-hate relationship with animal books. Because I'm like, at some point, the dog is going to die, and I'm going to be so sad.
I know, every time.
He goes back and forth from whimsy to serious really well.
He does.
Yeah.
In the books. Yeah. And but the movie, the TV show.
The new TV show, the new version.
Worth
It looks
watching.
really good.
And if you want an audiobook, the guy playing James Harriet does the readings.
Ooh.
And he kicks his he already has is he from Edinburgh or Glasgow?
I forget.
But so he's got an accent. But when he reads the books, he piles it on even heavier. So he goes back into more of his native accent.
Wonderful.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. Yeah.
Speaking of which, I want to hear more about Scotland. Why were you in Scotland? How long were you there? Where were you at? All of that.
Yeah. So that's a fun story that technically starts in 2018. Okay. I was going to graduate college, didn't really know what I was going to do with my life. And my church was like, hey, we've got some internship positions opening up. So originally I thought I was going to go to Spain because I had gone in 2016 and I loved it. And I was like, okay, yeah, I know some of the church planners there. So it'd be fun just to work alongside them, see if I want to do like a career in ministry or something like that. And then our church was partnering with a group called the Herald's Trust in Scotland, Livingston area. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll do that for like 3 months, August to November. Sounds great. I'll fundraise, do all the things. August rolls around, flying. It's all cool. I'm by myself for the first time flying internationally. So I've been internationally, but never by myself. So that was also a learning experience. And I get to Heathrow and they asked me at border control, they're like, so what are you here for? And I said the worst words imaginable. I'm here for an internship. And then they replied, where's your visa? To which I said, I don't have one. And then it really went downhill after that. So I did not know I needed a work visa. I thought it'll be fine. I don't have to say I'm here for tourism because no one told me that. I'm used to doing that in other countries where you could be, go to jail for saying the wrong thing. But all they told me was like, oh, Heathrow can be a little strict. I was like, okay, I don't know what that means, but sure. I get moved to like the middle of the airport, which is like this little roped off area. So it's not like you can't leave, but people kind of know like something's up. So I'm there. I'm crying at this point, just texting my internship director who's in Scotland. I'm like, hey, I'm like stopped at the border. I'm not going to make my connecting flight. But there's one every half hour. So maybe I hadn't told my parents what was happening at this point. Because I was like, maybe it'll be fine. And then they moved me to the back room. So if you're ever wondering what the back rooms are for in the airport, that's where they take people. So it's like this one was like a little DMV that you can't leave, and they take all your stuff except for your wallet, which is super helpful in that room. So that's when I finally told my parents, I'm like, hey, I'm going into this like detainment facility. Here's the number to call in because I can't call out because the payphone is weird. I tried. It charged me $44 for nothing. So that was fun. So yeah, they took all my stuff and I just had to wait. So I was like, cool, this is great. It was 1 o'clock in the afternoon at this point. So I'm really like just tired. I'm like, what's happening? It's like, this is not what I thought was going to happen. But they were really nice. Like every hour, they're like, are you okay? I'm like, well, I have a terrible headache and I would like some meds. They're like, we can't give you meds. I'm like, cool, that's fine. So several hours go by. My best memory, actually there's 2. I'd asked for like Kleenex and they just pointed to the bathroom where the toilet paper was. I was like, I guess that'll work. And then there was like this inspirational poster of quotes on the wall, and one of them was from Mao Zedong. And I sat there and I'm like, I don't think this should be here. And I'm confused why this is here. But I don't know if it's the jet lag or if this country is just really weird. So yeah, they interviewed me later. They went through all my stuff. They were really nice. Really no one was mean except for the person who asked me the question at border control. So they're like, well, we have to send you home. You've got 2 options. You can either stay here and, find your own way back. We can put you on a flight tonight to New York, but then you have to find your own way back to Atlanta. I was like, no. So then they're like, well, you can go to the detainment facility, which has a shower. And I'm like, that's what I want to do. And so by that point, it was midnight. So I'd been at the airport for 12 hours in a room, pretty much by myself, with no idea what's going on. I looked real great in all the photos they took of me.
Oh my
God. It was great. So they put me in this van with this other girl who I don't know her story or her life, but she looked like she could murder me. She just had that look in her face, and like the lights on in the van, you can't see out. There's no lock on the inside because you're a flight risk. So I'm just there with my stuff. We get to the detainment facility. That one looked more like a prison on the bottom level. And so she was taken away. I was given a cup of tea, which was great. And then they interview you, just ask if you're okay. And then I looked at like this poster while I'm being interviewed by this doctor, and it just says 10 ways to, avoid stress. Don't worry. I'm like, awesome. Great. I'm too tired to worry. It's 1 a.m. and I don't know what's happening. So I got a cell phone. They put my SIM card in like this little brick phone, so I had to remember how to text with like cycling through all the letters. So that was also fun at 1 a.m. Super jet lagged. And I heard an American come in behind me. I'm like, oh, I wonder if I can room with her. I don't know what's going on with her, but I don't know what's happening. So this lady takes me upstairs. She's really nice. She's like, well, we're not going to put you in the room with the lady who you came in with. There seems to be something going on with her. I'm like, cool. I was in a van ride with her. This is fun. So I ended up getting to room with the American who had also made the stupid mistake I did of saying, I'm here for this, which she was here for babysitting because some close friends of hers were like, hey, we'll pay for your trip if you come hang out with us, but also watch our children. So she had never been out of the country. And her poor sweet soul, she's like, I have a final due on Saturday. I'm like, girl, I don't know what's going to happen to either of us. So you have a good excuse for your professor. So, and because there was only one flight.
My homework.
Yeah, it was like there was only one flight to Atlanta, and it was like daily. So I was like, okay, so we gotta wait. Leave the next morning to go to this other facility. So I also got like this wonderful packet of information, and at the top it said prison number, which was really fun. So I was like, this is great. They're like, well, it won't show up on anything. Like, you're not going to be like denied flight because you didn't really do anything besides not have a visa. And we just pretty much deported you back. So I'm like, okay, this is fun. Really got to learn the inside of the English kind of border control security. I get taken to a secondary location, which at that point I'm thinking of John Mulaney's skit where he's like, I'm terrified of going to a secondary location because your chances of coming back are low. Not that I was going to think I was going to get murdered, but then we pulled up and it looks like a cement factory where the mob dumps their people. And that like, it's just this white building in like this lot of dirt. And I'm like, where are we? And they also had to go through my stuff again. We wait there and then go to the airport. And then, so these 2 officers were with me the whole time. Like, they were really nice and everything. But we had to take a bus to get to the airplane. The problem is they did not want me on the bus with other people because, again, I am a flight risk. So they're like, well, we either have to go get the van, which is parked on the other side of the airport, and drive to the plane because you have to be the last one to load, or we just wait till the bus comes back. So yeah, that was fun. Did not see my passport for a full 24 hours. And then I went back home and it was great. So then we worked on trying to get a visa, which took 9 months because Brexit was happening. So really fun set of coincidences because I drove down to our UK visa office, which thankfully Georgia has 2. Some states don't even have any. So I had to wait. It was on, I forgot when. I get all the way down there. They're like, we're not accepting visas. I'm like, why? They're like, Brexit. I'm like, cool, great. So I had to basically wait and refresh this stupid government page, which was just awful. And then they're like, oh, when you get waitlisted, you have to come in for this day. And it was on my birthday in 2019. So I spent my birthday in Atlanta at a visa office that was also going to close early because it was Easter weekend. So all I needed was my biometrics, which is just my fingerprints, me to send some documents, and get a picture of my face. So visa process, very lengthy, super fun, paying a couple $1,000s for that. And then you send off documents and you just hope it works. And so it was just a lot of praying of what are we doing? And then literally middle of May, they're like, hey, here's your visa. You've been approved. Now you can go. So having to find airfare in summer to Scotland was such a fun trip because it's so expensive. So, but then I did. And then I ended up staying for 6 months instead of 3. So it was all in the Lord's timing. Yeah. So basically what I did there was everything. I helped with their newsletter. I helped with their children's organization. I basically built the curriculum. I worked with the church plant there, the different mission teams that came in. The Billy Graham organization at one point was helping them when they were trying to set up first stuff in Glasgow, which was for 2020, which was also fun. So it was a lot, but it was a fun story to bring back afterwards, especially when I'm like, well, I've been deported before. And well, I'm like, technically that's what it was. I was in the country. They said, no, come back when you have documentation. And then I did. So, but I will never go through the Heathrow airport, into Heathrow if I can. I can leave Heathrow, but I prefer not to go into that airport.
Yeah.
And then, actually, funny. So when I was flying into Edinburgh, because I did a Philadelphia to Edinburgh in the May flight, and they took my passport, looked at my visa when I was crossing border control, and then they left for 15 minutes, and I was having a panic attack. Not again, please, not again. But it was fine. I made it into the country.
Oh my gosh! And so
that was Scotland.
2019 and into 2020.
So I was there from May 2019 to November 2019. So right before all the craziness happened. But I knew some of the interns who were going into 2020, and that was wild.
Right. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
So because it was March of 2020
March-ish,
for US at least.
Yes.
Yeah, when everything closed down and everything. So
wow.
Yeah. Wow. Man, what a story. Holy cow. So how are you going to turn that into a fantasy so you can
I don't know. I think I did that mostly through poetry in my head. I don't think I've ever written it out, really, but I need to.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Incredible.
That's incredible. So, but Scotland was amazing. And,
Scotland was amazing, yes.
Yeah. And that definitely influenced this book. Flowers and everything.
The lady I stayed with, wonderful lady named Margaret, she was in her 70s, just a wild woman, and she had this little technically it was her it was her back garden, but the houses are set up weird because the back garden faces the street, so she had this wonderful little garden, and we would just sit out when the sun was out, and she was growing all kinds of things. It was a little bit overgrown and everything, so I just really loved that. I also just loved gardens anyway. Wow. But after that trip, I was like, I really want to write some sort of Scottish inspired book. Don't know when, because I wasn't even thinking about this book at that point. So
but the because they leave stuff out for the, how do you pronounce it? The SIDHE word.
Oh, I think it's pronounced she, or this. I think it's she.
Right. Yeah, and that's
I'm not really good with Gaelic.
Right. Yeah. Well, but that's a very Scottish thing. Right? That's their term for the fae and all of that.
Right? The little fairies.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of the words seem to be inspired by that kind of mythology. So, so are you Scottish by heritage or anything like that? Or what draws you to Scotland?
I had just never been to Scotland at that point, and I only knew, so my mom's side of the family is Italian. My dad's side is like German, other European countries, and I think a little Welsh. But then definitely when I went to Scotland, the lady I was staying with, her last name was Ross. So we were talking about just like clans and stuff. And she's like, well, Andrews is like a sub branch of Clan Ross. So we could be related. But like the clan system's weird because you don't actually have to be related by blood. You can just get adopted into clans. Or at least that's how it was back then. So there is a little tartan for Andrews. And it does exist in like the little book. So I'm like, well, maybe.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting.
But I've never been able to trace it that far back. So
yeah. Okay, so there's Scottish influence in this one. The other one, though, Assassins, is more. It's like Arabic, isn't it? Or
yeah. So it's it's Morocco and North Africa. And there's some Arabic influences. But yeah, so that was really fun to start with. Because I've never been, and a desert climate is obviously not where my complexion does well.
So what drew you to that area? Like, have you read like King of the Wind and, other books that are set in Morocco? Like, do you love that area?
I don't think I've read that one, but I always just love the food. So usually like for books, it starts with the food or just like the landscape and just those kinds of imagery. And I don't even remember like why I really settled on that one. It's just, I just love the landscape and the culture and just everything that was just so rich in that area, but I hadn't seen a lot of fantasy written, at least like dark fantasy kind of written in that kind of area.
Yeah.
Or at least done well. Not saying my books, but done well, but just like something in a positive light as much as possible. So it was like I really toyed around with that of, how much influence can we do while still kind of making our own thing. But yeah, mostly food is where I really do like, do I want to write about this kind of culture just from the food? So
right. So do you cook a lot then? Bake a lot?
I do, yeah. After I got sent back from England the first time is when I really started making bread. So it was like either I'm depressed or this is a new skill we're gonna learn. So really got into bread making. But my mom's always cooked. So just grew up doing that, and then we're like, I'm very thankful that our family is like open to trying new things. So like it wasn't just like mac and cheese and hamburgers. It was like if my mom liked a recipe from Food Network, she's like, we're gonna try this. So like we had like North African chicken with like the lentils and like a spice of butter and like as much as possible to make it like that. And so we like Indian food. My dad loves Indian food. He's really into cooking that lately. So that's always just kind of been a part of my upbringing, is like, let's just try a recipe if it sounds good.
Awesome.
So what is your current food obsession, and what fantasy novel is going to come from that?
Oh, that's so hard. Because
like, what do you
Moroccan food's just so good.
Yeah.
And I mean, I love Scottish food. I will stand on the hill that says haggis is good. It just depends on how it's prepared. You're not just supposed to eat it like it is. You just gotta have it with the neeps and the tatties and the brown sauce and prepared right. And I just slather that on a sandwich. It's good breakfast. So yes, it's hot. It depends on the mood, because the Scottish really know their way around a dessert. It's mostly sugar. They're always funny. They're like, American stuff's too sweet. I'm like, you have a dish called tablet, and it's just like 8 cups of sugar and butter melted together to form another butter sugar cube, and you eat that.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know what you're telling us about our Pop-Tarts.
Right.
So... Because my host, she was so funny. As like the first day I got there, she's like, I hid all the biscuits in your room, otherwise I will eat them. And I watched her one time. I got these salted caramel filled donuts for like £1. There were 6 of them. She ate half of them. And the first day I had them, I'm like, Margaret, what are we doing? She's like, I told you, I can't. You got to eat them. You got to hide them. I'm like, okay. All right. But they walk everywhere, so I guess it evens out.
Oh, I think you're saying that the desserts walk everywhere.
They do. They stay with you as you go everywhere.
That's true.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, we do only have 10 minutes left, so
We have a
let's
few
check
questions,
our questions. We did have some questions. Well, of course, Tori's first question.
Tori asks, Tori of Tori Talks asks,
I don't know who that is. Can you tell me about her?
Who is that?
how are you such an ace at beautiful word descriptions?
Mhm.
Oh, I don't know. It's like every book's a miracle that it makes sense.
Oh.
But mostly it just starts with, I'm a very visual person, and I love just like, what words are tactile enough maybe to describe a setting without trying to overdo it. And it really just depends on the tone too. So just looking at connotations of words to me is important. It's just like a fun little puzzle of like what's going to make sense to create this imagery, which is again the foundations of poetry, is how are we going to convey an emotion and create an image, or what is it we're trying to do in as many words or as little words as possible. So just kind of carry that over from poetry to literature, because Tolkien had really good descriptions, even though we all know he just goes on for pages about certain things, and I'm like, we could have summed this up in a really good sentence, but sometimes you'll unearth just those nuggets, so it's like, this is wonderful. So I can forgive you for writing so much about this tree.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, just Tahara Mafi, I really loved her descriptions. I think that was the first author I was like, oh my gosh, this is how you can really write. We call it purple prose, but I was just like, this is just so descriptive. And just it was something about like the seconds jumping off the cliff or something. And just like, it was just really cool how she wrote that. And so I really loved just descriptive writing that could really just punch a hole in you, depending on how it's being read and what the situation is. So I just loved it. It's just a trial and error thing, because sometimes I'll be like, this is a really good sentence. I've never written this before. And then I'll find it later. I was like, oh, okay, there it is.
Well, I think you do an excellent job of your, you use very strong words, right? So you're definitely a wordsmith, because you're finding that really strong word instead of saying, it's very pretty. You use, very evocative prose, and not prose. It's very poetic. It's so poetic, your sentence structure and everything. But also you're very good at stopping, like you said, keeping it short and to the point, which makes it more punchy and makes it even more evocative. And you just want to like sit there and just reread that sentence over and over again, because it's just so momentous. Like it captures a moment.
Most of that is from my writers group. Definitely. They saw these drafts when they were real hot messes, and they're like, maybe we need to cut this down, because I do tend to overwrite, which is why Hills was supposed to be a novella, and then we overshot by an extra 30,000 words. Actually, no, it was an extra 60,000 words. Sorry. So it became a novel.
Hey, so good problem to have. That's good. That's good.
I mean, I'm an English major. What's math? I don't know.
That's exactly right. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I have a really hard time believing that your first drafts are dirty, because
Oh, they're bad. They're so bad.
I'm very impressed by your writing style. It's been amazing.
That's why it takes 10 years normally.
Right. That's true. That's true. Did you have?
No.
Oh, good. Okay.
Nope.
Pete is wondering, what age did you read Harry Potter, and do you think that affected your experience with it?
I think I was 3rd or 4th grade when I read it. It was somewhere in the middle of elementary school. So I don't know, because that's usually when I thought people picked it up and they're like, I love this. I think the movies were just starting to come out.
Yeah.
So that was also a thing, because I wasn't allowed to watch the movies, and I couldn't get away with that one as easily. I tried. But when you have neighbors who know your parents, they're like, we're going to ask them if we can watch this movie. I'm like, darn. So I think that might have done something.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was magical. It was fun, but it didn't hit like the other ones did. So, but I know enough that I sound like I like it.
Right. That's okay. You're allowed to not like Harry Potter. It's okay.
It's not that I don't like it. I'm not in the fandom.
You're not a fan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's okay. Lord of the Rings is better anyway. Sorry. Not sorry. There you go.
Shad says, do your books have audiobooks?
Not yet. I just have not gotten around to it, because cost is a thing, and then that's a whole other kind of book that I have to pay attention to. Because I am one of those weird people that I just hate my own work being read out loud, and especially if I have to listen to it, which is why I hardly ever really read it out loud. But I know, like, in order to have like the good audiobook, I'd have to sit and listen to it, and I'm just like not there. But I will get over it eventually. I don't know when. Maybe when the whole trilogy is out, and I'll be like, okay, we can now make this more of a selling point to people of like, hey, the series is complete, but now we can listen to it.
That is so interesting to me because you're so poetic. I can't imagine you not wanting to listen to it because it would sound so beautiful. It sounds
I think if I had amnesia, it'd be fine. If I forgot this was my book, it's like, it's a really good book.
So you don't remember, right?
Yeah, so we'll do that when I, have amnesia, and we can record the audiobooks.
Right, there you go. And then Alicia was wondering, what did your mom do to anger the rooster?
I don't know. I thought she was just walking. The rooster just did not like her and just was like, hey, I'm going to mess you up.
Yeah.
Wrong rooster can be a real problem.
It can be. Yeah. Yes, exactly. But others, I mean, I love the personalities of birds, but they can be,
Mark Lawrence said that about my chicken. He's like, this chicken's got more personality than any of the chickens I've interacted with, which I was like, well, it's fantasy. But thank you.
Also, he's clearly never interacted with a chicken.
I think he had. I don't know.
So a lot of personality.
Yeah. It's like when people read Thrice and said that Leaf talked like too little of a child or too old of a child, and they're like, you never known a 4-year-old.
Some 4-year-olds say really profound things and then fart afterwards. So it's
exactly.
The way, absolutely. Yep.
It's the punctuating moment, right?
The moments of brilliance. I could see your brain developing.
Exactly. And then Alicia was also asking about audio. Yeah. So yes, there you go. Asked by a chicken, have you ever really lived? Exactly. Oh my gosh. So Alicia, if you have not read her books, you'll love you'll love Hills and Bone because it's So final question in the last 3 minutes. You do deal with a lot of very, very difficult themes in your works. So is that something you set out to do, or is that something that just came naturally?
I think it was more just because I'm like more of an emotions driven person, especially with characters. Like I connect with that more. So when I first was writing Assassins, the thing I noticed like a lot in literature, especially with women characters, is like being defined by the trauma rather than like this is just kind of a part of the story. And even if they're still kind of dealing with it or not dealing with it during the story, like maybe it not taking the full like characterization of who they are, and just kind of being more of like, how does this affect them, but how can they still live a different life even though they're carrying this around? So I really wanted to kind of dive into that with Assassins, and obviously that one's a lot heavier, but with Hills of Heather and Bone too, of just like the exploration of trauma and grief in different formats of how do we carry that, how can it still be a beautiful thing even though it's done not beautiful things to us. And with the both stories, it's not a reconciliation story per se of like we go to therapy and this all like works out, but we still kind of carry those bits and pieces with us. There's no like happy ending to that because it'll come up in different ways even when you have kind of dealt with it. So not that I've gone through necessarily all those things in my life, but the things that have hurt me, the things that I still carry with me, the anxieties of still growing through that and still having those hard moments and still having to face that in a new season, just to try and get that on the page of characters who are going through that, and just showing both kind of maybe the healthy and mostly not healthy ways of dealing with some of these things, and just mostly how can that be explored.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
that's a profound ending.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on tonight, Katie.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. And anybody who's watching this on the replay, or those of you who joined us tonight live, thank you so much for tuning in. Katie, where can we find your books?
They can be found pretty much everywhere. The ebooks for all my poetry and my short stories are wide. So Assassins, Guns and Secrets, and Hills of Heather and Bone are Kindle Unlimited, and just on Kindle, slowly starting to get those wide. The physical copies can be found on Amazon, Ingram Sparks, wherever online books are sold, Barnes and Noble. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Everywhere.
Awesome.
Oh, Broken Binding as well for my fantasy.
Awesome.
Yes,
Awesome.
yes, yeah. So definitely go out and pick up copies of these books.
Yeah.
They're absolutely gorgeous, and can't wait for more books. So it sounds like there might be a sequel sometime this year.
Trying. We're trying.
You got this.
You got this. You can do it. Thank you so much again for joining us tonight. This is wonderful. So, all right, everybody. Well, thank you so much. To next week is
Michael Roberti.
Michael Roberti. Yes. Another fantasy author, right? And so he'll be joining us live next week.
Yeah.
Same bat time, same bat channel. So, everybody have a wonderful week. Thank you. Good night.
Bye.